Hello, I welcome you all. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are viewing me from. And this is Torchlight News. I am Chimelum Henry. And today I'll be talking about, the post-match, report on the 2026 World Cup that just concluded yesterday. As we all know, the Spanish national team are the world champions. From nowhere, I should say, because they were not my favorite to win this World Cup. If I'm being honest, the French national team and the Argentine national team were the most favorite to win this, World Cup, considering the fact that, they have contested in the previous World Cup. But the Spanish national team, after their first match against, Gabo Verde, where they struggled to win that match, they didn't even win. They scored. In fact, they couldn't even score a goal because the match ended in a 0-0 draw. So I don't know if I should say whether it is how good the Cape Verdeans were that made Spain not to win that match, or how poor the Spanish national team were that made them not to win that match. But if you've watched Spain in their last two matches in this World Cup, you will know and see how good they are. They dominated both France and Argentina, thereby winning this World Cup in a style. In fact, they were disciplined enough not to concede a lot of goals. I think it was only Belgium that scored them a solitary goal. And their previous matches, all of them were clean sheets. But yesterday's match against Argentina, most fans, especially the Argentine fans and the Messi fans, were hoping that Messi and Argentina, would lift that trophy. But the Spanish team, said otherwise in that game. They dominated from start to finish. In 120 minutes that were played, Argentina didn't even have a shot on target. The Spanish national team had 20 shots on target. 20 shots on goal, 12 on target. So, but they couldn't convert a lot of the chances, and they managed to score in the second half of extra time through Ferran Torres. The Spanish national team has really showed that identity. If you maintain your identity, definitely you are going to achieve success in football. And they have shown that, because after they won their first World Cup in 2010, with playing the same style of football, this current generation of players that are very young, a lot of them in the next World Cup will be in their prime age, also came with the same philosophy, and they have dominated, the world football again. The likes of Lamine Yamal, Paul Kubasi, these players are only about 19 years of age, but the level of maturity they have shown in this stage, is something to write home about. And kudos to the Spanish national team in general, who, over the years have maintained this their philosophy of, keeping their possession, using it to frustrate their opponents. And in their coach, in Luis de la Fuente, who transitioned from the under-21 coach to the main national team just over 2 years ago, has won just the exact same thing that Spanish successful manager in Vicente Del Bosque won. Vicente Del Bosque won the Euro 2012 and the World Cup 2010. And De La Fuente, within the space of 3 years, has achieved that feat with the same style of play, and even with younger and hungrier footballers. So it was a game that football lovers, Spanish supporters really enjoyed. The way they dominated the game against Argentina, because this Argentina team, they have always shown fighting spirit whenever they are a goal down. But they couldn't show that yesterday, just because of the manner in which Spain approached the game, and they made Lionel Messi quiet, because Argentina, they played through Messi. Once Messi performed, Argentina performs, and unfortunately yesterday he couldn't perform. But notwithstanding, I think the Argentine team, they have shown also that they are a good side for them to have come this far. Just that they met a superior team in general, not in terms of quality of the player, but just because of the pattern of play. The Spanish national team were much more superior yesterday, and all of us saw the game yesterday. From start to finish, they dominated Argentina. Argentina couldn't do anything in that match. Then, unfortunately, they were, a man down after Enzo Fernandez was red carded. But kudos, to the Spanish national team, and congratulations to all Spanish faithful, in achieving this feat. At least they are the world champions. The likes of Pau Kubasi, Lamine Yamal, Ferran Torres, they have joined the likes of Fernando Torres, De Vivia, Iniesta, Xavi in winning the World Cup for the Spanish national team. And this is their second World Cup final and their second triumph. The record still remains that 8 countries in the world, have won the World Cup, and it is now only England that is the only country that have won the World Cup. One, the other ones have won at least twice. The next World Cup will be in 2030, hosted by Spain, Morocco, and Portugal. For Lionel Messi, at least I am grateful to have watched you play football. You've shown us, how football is. You brought memories for us, and I believe that most of us enjoyed watching you. And I believe that this World Cup, is and might be, your last, international tournament for your country, because yesterday he was so much emotional after his name, we are being, chanted Messi, 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 Messi. So what a great footballer, he is, and he has shown, in this his career. So in the tournament too, Pau Kubasi, was voted as the young, player of the tournament, while the Spanish goalkeeper Unai Simon won the Golden Globe because he kept the highest number of clean sheets. But surprisingly, they voted Rodri as the most valuable player, and I believe that not every football fan will agree to that, to that vote. But Rodri also, was one of the reasons why the Spanish national team, conceded only one goal and dominated the game through midfield, because he was controlling the game, from midfield and as a captain. So he led his team, by example. But many of us thought that, based on the performances of Lionel Messi, that he would have won the most valuable player in the World Cup. And Spain, having won this, World Cup, maybe we are going to see Lamine Yamal, crowned as, the Ballon d'Or winner later in the year, because he has shown some consistency too, even at a young age. What a talent he has, and he has achieved a lot of success, because winning the World Cup is not something that every footballer, in this world, has achieved. You just imagine how great Cristiano Ronaldo, has become in football. Yet, he has not even been able to play in a World Cup final. But that is not his fault. It is just because of, the country where he is playing for. Because not every country, wins the World Cup. But unfortunately for him, so he hasn't won. And maybe he might not be able to even win it again, except if he decides to, play football up until 45 years, when the next World Cup will be, hosted by his country, Spain and Morocco. So it has been a roller coaster World Cup. A lot of surprises from the Cape Verdeans, to Mexican teams, even the American team. They all competed very well in this World Cup. But at the end of the day, the Spanish team were the champions, and they deserved being champions because of their last two performances against France and Argentina. So that was a really interesting World Cup. I don't know how you enjoyed it, but I really enjoyed this World Cup, So these are some of my thoughts about, the just completed 2026 World Cup, Follow us. We are on X at Torchlight News _. Like, comment, share, Thank you.